Get your stopwatch ready. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about using a pattern bit with a bushing in 15 seconds or less. Start the timer. Subtract your cutter diameter from your bushing diameter and divide that number by 2 and you have your pattern offset. How'd I do? Was that under 15 seconds? With that information, you can stop watching this video, head out into the shop, and start making some sawdust with your bushing. But if you want a little more detail, you can hang around a little bit longer and I'll show you some things with these props that I have out here. This is a bushing and this is a cutter. This happens to be a 1/4 inch and 3/8. So the difference from the cutter to the bushing is 1/8 of an inch. Divide that number in half, it's 1/16. If I make a pattern that the cut I want is 1/16 of an inch, larger than, say, this pattern, there will be a 1/16 of an inch more of wood left on all edges. That means that this piece right here will be 1/8 of an inch wider. When I made this pattern, all of these cantilevers, 1/8 of an inch narrower, that accounts for that 1/16 of an inch offset. On inside cuts, it's the same offset, it's just in reverse. These rectangles here, 1/8 of an inch larger, because we're going to be leaving 1/16 of an inch on all edges. If I take this cutter, which is 1/2 of an inch, and the proper bushing for it, 5/8, there's a 1/8 difference. Divide that in half by 16, and I'm going to get the exact same cut. 3/4 inch cutter, 7/8 inch bushing. The differential is going to be 1/8 of an inch. Cut in half is 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to get the same cut with these patterns. It isn't going to vary. I'm emphasizing this point because I've written down 3 questions that I get over and over. Number 2 is, what size cutter should I use? You're going to get the same cut, regardless of a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch or 3/4 or whatever it is. It's the differential from your bushing to your cutter. There is one caveat to that where the cut will be slightly different on the inside corners. Because you're cutting with a round cutter, when you go to the inside of that cut can be no smaller than the radius of your cutter. So this smaller cutter, it's going to have a tighter corner than this larger cutter. With that being said, I cut most all of my work with a 1/2 inch and a 5/8 bushing. These larger bits hold up better, they last a lot longer. These tend to break and wear out faster. They're both from the same company, they're both solid carbide. They're the exact same bit, just different sizes, but yet these hold up and last a lot longer. I am using a spiral bit. These happen to be upcut spiral. You can get downcut, upcut, and also bidirectional. I just tend to go with these. My recommendation is to get a kit of bushings, and that'll cover a wide range, and then stock up on your 1/2 inch and your 1/4 inch. These will be your go-tos. What I do most of the time is cut with my 1/2 inch, and then if I need tighter corners, I will drop in with this and just tap out the corners. Now I will use this sometime on thinner material, or if I'm in a situation where I really need to use a cordless router. I don't have a cordless 1/2 inch, so I'll grab this guy out and I'll use it. And what I'll do is I'll make more passes. So I'll make shallower cuts and just keep going deeper and deeper. So it takes a little bit longer, but I can get a nice cut. But again, I don't do that as a matter of habit. It's just, it's there when I need it. The number 1 question I get is, why not use a pattern cutter instead of a bushing? And then you can make your patterns exactly the size that you want, the end result, versus figuring out that offset. I choose the bushing for a lot of reasons, but the number 1 reason is these will frustrate the heck out of you and cost you a lot more money in blown patterns and in messed up material. This bearing must ride right on your pattern. If it slides off just a little bit, now the cutter goes in, messes up your pattern, and cuts into your material that your pattern is attached to, so it's a double loss. Now you've got to spend all that time making a new pattern, and replacing the wood. With the bushing, this never happens because the bushing is attached to the base of your router. The bushing does not move. It's in contact with your material the whole time, so it's up against your pattern. As you move the cutter in and out, it has no opportunity to come in contact with your pattern. It's inside of that bushing. The bushing not only is a guide, but it's protecting your wood and your pattern from the blade. Another reason is the quality of the cut. With these pattern bits, at least all the ones that I've ever had an opportunity to purchase, they're straight cutters. And they make nice cuts. Don't get me wrong, I've cut with straight cutters for years and years. But when I switched over to these spiral bits, I get a much better cut. Another cost savings is these upcut spirals or the standard straight cut bits that don't have the bearing. They're multi-purpose. You can use them for making dados and all kind of cutouts and planing and the things that you can do with them, which you cannot do with the cutters with the bearing on them. So you purchase this bit, it does a lot of different things. Toss in the bushing, and these things are very inexpensive, and now you have a pattern bit. And in addition to not having to buy a dedicated cutter to do pattern cutting, you have to buy the length of cutter that you need to do the cut. If the cutter is too long, it's not only going to cut through your material, which you're requiring it to do, but it's also going to cut underneath. So if you're working on a workbench or on your sacrificial strips, you're going to be cutting those up more, and it's going to be using more energy. It's going to be slowing the router down more. It's going to be cutting more material. So in that case, you'll want to buy a bit that's sized for the thickness of the material that you're cutting. With this type of cutter and a bushing, you can go ahead and get a long one, and it will do the short stuff as well as the long stuff because, again, the bushing doesn't move. So I can drop that in with my plunge router for 1/4 inch material, 1/2 inch material, 3/4 inch material. It doesn't matter. I can go. So I've got multi-size versus having to buy multiple pattern bits. And again, that they're only useful for that one purpose. Like all things we do in life, you need to practice, practice, practice to get good at it, to understand the nuance. I promise you that if you will get your bushing and your cutter out and start using them, it might be frustrating in the very beginning, but very quickly you'll understand how these things can save you a lot of time, increase the quality and accuracy of your work, and if you're in the professions, it'll make you a lot of money. If you want to get a set of plans to build a smart workbench, a smart station, or any of the accessories that work with the system, I'll put a link in the description of this video down below. If you want to see how easy it is to make and use a pattern, at the end of this video, I'll put a link to another video right here. And if you want to see me make this pattern and use it to make these trim trees, I'll put a link to a video right here. Mahalo for hanging out with me in the Smart Wood Shop.